So I am going to call the meeting to order. We're establishing a quorum. Everyone is here except for Committee Member Townsend, who was in Texas, uh, dealing with the expanding of his family with the new grandchild. So our hats off to him. I know he's having a good time, and the rest of us hopefully will as well. There was a little bit of problem in getting the meeting going. Variety of different things were happening, including I was unable to get a video going, which in some ways people might say, well, that's not a bad idea, Harry. But as I said to Leah, I said, Leah, I think it's a combination of Mercury retrograde, and it is the policy committee. And things always get a little weird with the policy committee. So it's a combination of those two reasons. So I've called the meeting to order. Like I said, we have a quorum except for Mr. Townsend. Do we have any ad hoc subcommittee reports? I don't believe that we do. So let me go ahead and give a chairperson's report. So first, let me ask anyone here in attendance, did any of you happen to attend the May 12th meeting where there was a discussion regarding correspondence to the board, or let's say answering correspondence to the board or responding to correspondence to the board? It could be worded in any of those ways. Did anybody happen to watch that? Go back and watch that. Okay. Well, then let me give you a brief report. First, it was a fairly lengthy discussion, just under a half an hour. There were a couple of members from a couple of folks from the community that spoke up and stated that they rarely, basically, I'll just tell you who they were. Ms. Heinrichs, Christine Heinrichs, and Elizabeth Bettenhausen. And they both stated that they rarely got a response from a board member when they send correspondence to all board members. So that's what they stated. Mr. Calderwood also made a comment, and I think he said that he hadn't found that to be the case, and he felt that any kind of query or question or comment to a board member, if it was relatively specific, that we probably would get an answer. I believe Michael's comment was something like that. So he didn't seem to have any difficulty with regard to getting feedback from a board member if he actually did connect with them. But as I said, the other folks, and I believe Ms. Dickinson had previously made that comment when addressing another agenda item at the meeting. So basically what happened was, as I said, this item lasted for just under half an hour. Initially, Director Steidel was not terribly favorable toward even having a policy in this regard. Director Gray said that as far as he was concerned, we should just table the item indefinitely, which mainly meant that it wouldn't be addressed. Vice President Dean at one point stated that the board president, in this case, Mr. Don Howell, that being the board president, it's up to him to basically reply to any correspondence to the board, specifically. Let's put it this way, generally. If there's some specific comment made to a particular board member, this should, if the board member does wish to respond, it should be cleared through the board president. Kind of got to that point. Basically, what wound up happening after all was said and done, the vote was 3-2 to not approve this policy. And only Board President Howell and myself voted to affirm the policy. The other 3 members didn't. So the policy that we sent back in September of 2021 that was finally discussed by the board, they weren't favorable to it. So like I say, you might want to know, now that you know what I've said, you probably don't need to watch it, but I think it was kind of disappointing, but that's the way it is. So that's my, yes. Does anybody have any questions?
Does this mean then that they will answer correspondence if they want to or not? Because there's no policy? I mean, how did they say they're going to respond to correspondence? They won't respond to correspondence? Just save
Well,
it?
I think what it is that, like I say, no policy was accepted that directed any board member to just, I mean, let me put it this way. At one point, myself, and then a little bit later on, Director Gray, I made the comment that we just owe any member of the public, whether they're a ratepayer or not, if they're communicating with a board member or every board member, that we should just generally make a response with just a thank you. Thank you for expressing your thoughts, your opposition to something or whatever. And then like I say, Director Gray kind of agreed with that we as board members at least owed anyone that's corresponding with us a response as just a courtesy. However, right now there is no policy. Hopefully, what that does imply is that we will be responding to any comment from a member of the public. However, we as board members need to make sure that it isn't anything more specific than a thank you. Because let's say that we respond and offer an opinion on what it is that they've presented. And let's say that other members of the board offer an opinion. So therefore, out in the public ethers, there's various opinions offered by board members that can be exchanged by the public with one another. And then all of a sudden, you have a serious Brown Act violation. So as a result, any kind of reply that we make should just be a general, especially in an email where it's visible, should just be a general thank you.
I have another question. So if somebody wants a question answered, what did the board, who is the person supposed to address their question to if they can't be the board?
Let me put it this way, the only board member actually authorized to give a response is the board president. But then again, we don't have a policy. So that would be my take on it, that the board president would probably be responding to any kind of query to the entire board. And if it's something specific to a particular board member, we would kind of clear what we're about to say with the board president. But then again, it's essentially, like I say, there is no policy. If it's anything that's in an email, it's probably just going to be a general courtesy thank you. I would imagine if any board member wanted to have any further discussion, that would probably be on the phone. I don't know. Does that answer your question? Yes, Ted.
Well, several things come to mind. First of all, this policy was suggested initially by a board member. It didn't come from the policy committee itself. It came from Amanda Rice, and I'd be very interested in hearing what her opinion is on this.
Right.
Finally, I'm glad that Michael has been receiving responses to his satisfaction, but there are quite a number of people in this town who have not, which points out that there is a disparity or a discrepancy, if you will, in the business of responding to people's questions. So that in itself, to me, is worrisome to say the least. I can't think of almost any circumstance where I would communicate with an entity of one sort or another and not, at the very least, expect some sort of response as to even an acknowledgement of receiving my voice. It's just inconceivable to me that that three board members would say, "Oh well, we don't have to respond to the public. if we don't want to. And, the public input is, well, it's not particularly high on our agenda. I just think that the no votes here speak volumes about our CSD that, well, just not good volumes, frankly.
Thank you, Ted. Would anyone wish to follow up on Ted's comment?
Yes.
Yes, Gordon.
I was in attendance at that meeting and your summary was very well covered. But as I recall, the end of the meeting resulted in, as you just suggested, that anyone that gets an email should respond with the appropriate answer of yes, or I got your email and I will respond or whatever in a certain timetable as appropriate. And so that's what it was left up to. I think one of your comments was that you didn't want to particularly have a specific dialogue to respond to, that you want to respond in your own characteristics. So at one time, your favor not responding in a particular format. So that wasn't too positive. But anyway, what I just want to try to bring up is that I sent an email just recently, a couple of weeks ago, after this meeting to Karen, and she responded within,
Vice President Dean.
yes, Vice President Dean, and she responded within a couple hours that she would look into it. And then she gave me the answer within 3 or 4 days after that to the question, which I'm still reviewing to see how it matched my question versus her answer. So at the moment, my first impression is Karen is following a good format of responding.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Gordon. Anyone else have any comment? All right, Ted, once again, go ahead.
Was this one of the policies that was supposed to go through the ad hoc analysis that the board has agreed to do with these policies that we're now submitting? It's my understanding that if we submit proposals, that the board is now going to go through an ad hoc filtration, if you will, of these policies and then return to us. It doesn't seem like that was the case here. I think it's great that Vice President Dean responded to Gordon's letters, and I usually get good response from Karen myself. But does that necessarily mean that that's going to be the case? I don't think it does. I mean, I don't think that, that the absence of any kind of codification of policy in this matter necessarily, means that we no longer need such a policy. Again, I would be very interested in hearing what Amanda Rice would have to say about this whole thing, since it was, like I say, since it was originally her idea. So,
yeah. Well,
you
let me just make this comment on what you just said. This is mainly for Ms. Scott, who hasn't been in the community that long. Amanda Rice was on the board for 8 years, and 2 years in a row, 2017 and 2018, she was board president, and she was initially the president of the chair, I should say, of the policy committee. It was kind of her idea, has already been alluded to. So it's interesting that someone with that kind of background, especially since when she ran both times, she came in first. So folks in the community, and we can all have our opinion about Amanda, but when she ran and came in first both times. And like I say, the policy committee was her idea. So it would be curious to know how she would feel about this ultimate decision to not even have a policy on responding to correspondence to the boards.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's move on to item E, committee member communications. Anyone here attending have any comment, want to report on anything at all? No? Nothing from
Harry?
you? I was just going to say nothing from Beautify Cambria. Claudia?
If I, go ahead, Gordon, he kind of spoke up before I did there.
Well, my comment would be of the status of the disaster evacuation for Cambria, in that they did have a meeting last Saturday, the Saturday before. I get time flies here, where they put on a program for the community and mentioned all the updates of what is being done, specifically with a new grant that was acquired through the fire department's CAL FIRE or some organization therein, that now they're going to be posting signs and directions and other information appropriately for these events. But there was no mention of exactly when that would happen and when they're going to actually get the grant. But what I'm suggesting is that they are somewhat following our policy, even though they didn't want to accept our policy, that they need to move this along to get sponsorship from the community and other organizations to be aware of how to get the 4 hours reduced down to a manageable amount, including a back entrance to Lodge Hill, which is what they're saying is, yeah, it'd be nice, but it's probably impossible. So we're still working on those events. So for those who want to still participate and go to the fire focus groups, that might still be a good thing for us as a committee members to see how they're directing their activities. Also relating to the burns for the forest committee that has some concerns about the way they're doing it, causing that last major fire potential that was avoided. So there's things we still need to address here, even though they won't accept that as a policy of some firm direction and coordinating of all the community organizations involved. My comments.
All right, thank you, Gordon. Did anyone else attend and have anything to say? No? Yes, Claudia.
A couple of things. One, about the Fire Safe Focus Group. They do like to burn things, and I know they weren't too pleased with us when we didn't burn, when we took the piles away before they could burn them on the top of the spaghetti bowl. But maybe we need to be more diligent about that, and maybe when we see these piles being spread around town, maybe we need to be a little bit more outspoken about the, not burning them underneath the canopy of trees, not leaving them all night, and starting fires and things like that. There's a little bit of hubris going on there with them, and they seem to think that what they told me was, I can control the fire. That's what one of them said. But they don't control the fire if you have a fire that starts back up again. So, and if you have smoke or fires that burn trees or smoke that bothers people's lungs and stuff. So it's something that, I don't know, I think as citizens, I think that we should be really aware of what they're doing and protect ourselves from them and protect our lungs and our, and our trees. So,
Excuse me, Claudia, I don't mean to interrupt, but when you say protect ourselves from them.
From the smoke, from the fires they start. So, I mean, I do, if I'd have to leave if they were doing it.
And when you say they, specifically you started by stating the Fire Safe Focus Group.
Yeah, well, they're
like to start fires. So
they
yeah,
fire doing it. Yeah, not just they are, but when they came up to assess the top of the spaghetti bowl, it was CAL FIRE and Fire Safe Focus person, one of each. So Denny, I think, was from CAL FIRE, and Steve Biddle from Fire Safe Focus Group. So there was one from each. So it's both. So anyway, I just wanted to comment about that. I just think we should be aware and protect ourselves. And then as far as Beautify Cambria, we've been proceeding with the Spaghetti Bowl project, which has to do with this fire thing, because we took the piles down, and the comments have all been really very positive. We planted geraniums on the top of the rail, and Gene Bronson Means has taken over the watering and carrying of that himself. He and Rita Burton are the ones that are picking up trash on the west end of town with the Adopt a Road program. We're diligent about taking off the the signs that people are so far only stapling, they haven't screwed or nailed them in yet to the wall. And anyway, we're just being diligent about it. So anybody who puts a sign up on that wall, using it as a bulletin board, it will be taken down. And if it's paper, it's going to be thrown away. If it's a banner, we haven't had it yet, but if it's a banner, we roll it up and put it there at the location, and people can see that their banner's down, and then they can come get it. We don't throw them away. So, because people have to pay for those. So, and we're just trying to get the word out and just, to let everybody know that that's what we're doing. And we plan on putting more flowers there. We plan on taking more invasive weeds off the hill in the fall, and then planting natives on the hillside to make sure that, it's stable. We've been working diligently on the medians, and we've been planting flowers and bushes. And I have to say that there is a certain husband of a certain member of our group who is a really good digger. He is such a good worker. I'm so thrilled to have him on our group. He's pretty amazing. He's smart, he speaks Spanish, and he's a good digger. So yeah, we have to put cages around all the things we plant, because I don't know, the word got out and the gophers are going, hey, go over to the median, fly, I don't know, whether they go underground or overground, whatever. So we're having to cage everything, but before I had a chance to put his hand in the cage, he'd already planted the plant. He's a great worker. Can't say enough good things about John. So that's been really good. We have a lot of people now who are helping us and promoting it, and we're getting more donations. And so these are things that are, it was the CCSD asked Beautify Cambria if we would take care of the median. So this is why it's kind of pertinent to the CCSD. Also with the fire safe focus group and the CAL FIRE on the hillside. That's also a fire hazard that we dealt with. And then we have a new project that we're going to be pursuing, and hopefully we'll do it. That's this, we tried to get a grant for it, didn't get it. And that is the top of Tin City. And so we're going to be dealing with that too. Cleaning it up, digging it up, planting, and putting up a cute little, tiny little sign, a Tin City sign, and then asking people to move their sandwich boards maybe down into Tin City. And we have an idea for a resolution of how to advertise for their stores. So, or those 8 people that put theirs up. So anyway, that's my little quick report. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much, Claudia.
We also had a bee and butterfly fair, I should say that. It was very successful. And thank you, Harry, because Harry was really helpful with that. So, sorry.
It was a lot of fun. There's no doubt about that. It's nice seeing the kids there, and adults acting as kids. All right. So thank you very much, Claudia. Any public comment? We only have one person in attendance. Michael, do you have anything to say at this moment in time? I don't see a hand raised, so we'll just continue on. Thank you.
No, sir, I got nothing.
Do you have plenty of nothing?
I got more nothing than I could handle. Thank you.
I was trying to, I don't remember what play that was.
I got plenty of nothing, and nothing is plenty for me.
There we go. I think it's Showboat or Porgy and
I think
Bess,
you're right.
something like that. Thank you. All right. Going on to the consent agenda. Anyone wish to have any comments on the minutes from our April meeting? Anyone wish to make a motion to approve the minutes from our April meeting? Yes, Gordon. Gordon?
I'll approve the minutes to the April meeting.
Okay, he's making a motion to approve the minutes. Anyone wish to second that?
Sure.
All right, thank you, Claudia. So very quickly, how about let's see a raise of hands as to all of us that approve the minutes. All right, thank you. So obviously, Mr. Heinrichs and Ms. Harmon, as well as Ms. Scott, Mr. Key have approved the minutes. So let's move on further here to regular business. So I think the first thing I need to do is apologize to committee member Scott, because at least last month I did separate old and new business. Unfortunately, this time I forgot. So my apologies. So let's go on to regular business, quasi old business here, kind of. Item number A, discuss the recent changes voted on by the Board of Directors at the April 21st board meeting regarding the standing committee bylaws, especially, of course, as they reference to the policy committee. So I've included that in our agenda here on page 5. Does anyone have any comments? Hopefully you all read this. Does anybody have any comments on the changes made with regard to if we submit a policy, how it gets discussed by the board? Yes, Claudia, you had your hand up?
Yes, I wish this wasn't a photograph. I wish it was maybe next time. I hope that we could have it as a cut and paste. And then if we want to cut something out and I want to make a note of it, then it'll be easier to do it. But anyway, I just pulled it up. It's on the agenda.
Why did you just said a photograph?
It's a photograph. So
Yeah.
if it was copied and pasted into this, then we'd be able to select a
Well,
sentence.
that's exactly what it is on page 5. I copied and pasted it from the board meeting, from the board agenda.
Then theirs was a photo because you can't, this is a photo. So anyway, okay, it is what it is. It's fine. So I guess the thing that really struck me with this is that, there's been a feeling that has pervaded us for quite a while now that the CCSD doesn't really want a policy committee. And then, there was a lot of discussion about that. So when I read the new policy, I realized that they kind of did that. They just stopped us from being able to do our job. So I don't know. It makes me feel like, why bother have a policy committee? I'm sorry to say that, but when everything that we're not allowed to bring forward new policy, and when we do suggest maybe a new policy, we have to get approval by an ad hoc committee, and that committee has to do, so it becomes very cumbersome in order to accomplish anything. So we have to wait for them to have their ad hoc meeting, and then we find out whether or not they're going to allow us to even discuss it. And if what just happened 5 minutes ago with the correspondence to the board, I'm feeling like, even if we do make a policy, it's going to be shut down. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that what can we do to make our committee more valuable to the CCSD? But how can we do something that will show them that we have value and that we should be listened to? And because according to this what do you call it, the new policy, the new what do you call it, bylaw, the new bylaw, they really don't want to, they want to do it themselves. So I'm not sure, it doesn't allow for us to do too much. It's very short, but it still doesn't allow us to do too much. So maybe you can explain this because you're a board member. Would you, if you could,
Well, I could read it, but let me just say this. The way it had been was that we recommend a policy to the board and ultimately the board discuss it. As you said, they've added this extra step. We make a recommendation to the board, and then the board forwards our recommendation for a policy to an ad hoc committee. And then the ad hoc committee goes back and forth and decides, well, do we really need this policy? And they make a recommendation back to the board. So I think in some ways, your point is well taken in the fact that there appears to be an effort made to how could we say it? Dismiss or give less credibility to what it is that we're doing. And that's the way I feel about it. And I found it to be a bit discouraging. I believe I was probably the only person on the board that voted against adding that additional step. But that's what the board did. Mainly at the, let's say at the insistence of certain board members or member. Does anyone else? Yes, Committee Member Scott, you first and then Mr. Key.
Well, I kind of, I mean, the basis for what you said, Claudia, I agree. But there's just a couple of things in this revision that doesn't make any sense to me. And one of that is in 1.7.3b, it talks about the current CCSD policy handbook. I don't think there is one. So that's the first thing. There's only the
CSDA.
yeah, the CSDA one. There is no CCSD policy handbook that I've been able to get a hold of. So that's the first thing. The second thing is develop a needs assessment. So is there a form or a format for that? I mean, there needs to be a correspondence policy. And now there's not going to be a correspondence policy. So I think that the wording of this change in the bylaws is a lot of, well, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but our vice president does this kind of talking too. So there you have it. The other thing is at the end of the,
Just for clarity,
Yeah.
when you say our vice president,
Yeah.
I
of
don't
the
know if you're,
United States.
oh,
I mean,
Okay.
let's just say, let's not say that. Get rid of what I just said. But
well, you're welcome to your opinion. I just wanted to know which vice president you were referring
I mean, it's
to.
word salad. What's here is word salad. It doesn't say anything. And then when it says directed to the appropriate resources for policy development, is the policy committee the appropriate resource or not?
No.
So, I wish they would have just said, no, we don't need a policy committee, because that's what this says.
Exactly. Yeah. At least it'd
That
be
is-
honest, at least it would be.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just my opinion, but and I'm not out to change the world. I'm just out to do the work that we need to do to have the CCSD be as successful as policy in representing the community. But this doesn't give us it doesn't give us a way to do that. So my opinion.
Thank you, Deborah. I think every point you made there was very well taken. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Yes, Ted Key.
Okay, just a couple of meetings ago, I submitted a letter to you folks. I'd like to read from that letter once again. I think there was some confusion that somehow I believed that the policy committee was, the ones that were marshaling or controlling the board. That's completely inaccurate. As a policy committee, obviously we submit policy drafts to the board to be considered. But I'd like to read this from the letter again. The policy committee is the only standing committee charged with communicating how we believe the board should be or not be conducting its business overall. The other two committees address only what a particular action on a particular item might be. There are a number of critically missing policies on the board policy manual. Perhaps the board would prefer that these policies remain absent, but the policy committee might believe otherwise. Now under consideration, the policy committee might be forbidden to introduce such proposals to the board agenda because the board will not authorize any such drafting work to be done. The board would now be placing its processes increasingly above and beyond community supervision or oversight. In effect, Unlike the other two standing committees, the policy committee is charged broadly with providing for procedural justice in the decision-making process of the board. If protocols are lacking for the policy committee to function as a guarantor of procedural justice in this way, how will justice exist? These limitations would mean that the board is creating a one-way communication process, closing, shunting localized initiative from the policy committee. In addition, we have not seen full approval of many reviewed and presented policies. Why would the board be so insistent that the few existing checks and balances in CCSD operations, as well as citizen initiatives, be subjugated at this time? I don't know what else to say about it. If this ad hoc idea makes the review of policies more efficient, if it provides better context to resolving these issues, then that's fine. The board gets the opportunity to do that. But I agree with Deborah. I don't get what's going on in what is written here. And I'm not feeling confident that with one-way communication, that the policy committee actually has a reason to exist. And if that's the case, what is the board really doing? That's it.
Thank you very much, Ted. If you wouldn't mind taking your hand down. And Gordon, you wish to make a comment as well?
Yes, sir. For a moment here. Yep. Yes, there is a policy in the website. It's called District Policies. And it lists all of the policies that we have in our CCDA book, whatever that one is. I don't know if you were able to pull that one up, but you have to write district policies to bring it up. Otherwise, it just brings up policy committee meetings. So based on that, there is a sections in there that we could address that is in the handbook, is the same as our book, basically. And most of them don't say much though. It's mostly the ones that they approved are on there and others not approved. So it states the status of each one of those policies. My thought is that we can review these on the website and present our case as we are interpreting the CSDA manual that needs to be addressed under this request for us to submit it to the board for consideration. So my intent is, if we've got about 40 or so that have not been commented on, I'd like to see about 40 or so submitted to the board for their action of whether they're going to disagree and have an ad hoc committee for each one of those 40 areas of interest that we would have. So therefore, they would be involved and they would have to set up ad hoc of 2 people for each one of those 40, theoretically, per their agenda as they've written it. So my case is, we should go take the positive and say, yes, we will agree with your situation and you will let the board make decisions on each one of these that we're bringing forth for their comments to whether we can go forward or not, and not allow them to pick and choose and say, well, you can't do anything. So this would bring forward our commitment to make changes that we feel personally, because we're part of the community. We're thinking that the policy should be addressed, and these policies are there for a reason. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been the CSDA book. This gets to me, this should have been approved right up front. This should be done by the policy. But what they're looking at is, they're saying, well, what if something deals with finance that the policy committee is not directly involved with? And so they say, well, the ad hoc committee will say, yep, well, we want to get the finance committee to be involved here. Oh, gee, we got to have the R&D committee involved because this is something they got to put on their budget, the item for buying something or whatever. So now the policy committee works as a conjunction with the 3 committees as a whole. And this is what Cindy was trying to relate to in being very stringent, that they didn't want us to get into the finance committee's area or the R&D's area without having approval from the ad hoc committee. That was my interpretation. So as I mentioned, I would go forward and review all these that are online. They've printed them, they call it their handbook. So therefore there is something printed, and they've only accepted the ones that we've done previously as adopted by a certain date shown on that page. And so those that are not adopted would be open for us to bring forward. So my suggestion is on our next agenda, we review all those and bring forth a list of those activities to bring forth for the board's determination of what we want to do with it. And with the end of this session, it relates to ethics, I think, in our last agenda item today, of where we're going to put these board members on call of what they're really standing behind. My comments.
All right, Gordon. Well, when we get to future agenda comments, bring that back up, okay? If you don't
Sure.
mind. All right. Seems as if we have a bit more discussion on this item. So let's go back to Ms. Scott and then Mr. Key. Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to some clarification, Gordon, because I really like that you're being positive. That's great. We need to be as positive as we can be. But so what you're saying is the CSDA handbook is the CCSD handbook?
The topics therein, correct. If you look it up under district policies online,
Yeah,
that'll bring up our whole list of the CSDA policies.
okay, so which ones of those are part of the CCSD handbook?
The ones that have been approved. It says
Okay,
in the upper
where-
right-hand corner, adopted on this date. In the upper
Okay,
right-
so that refers to CCSD adoption?
Right. See what I mean? They put this out there, which is great, and they've told us which ones they've accepted, which means the other ones have not.
Okay. Okay,
So
so,
you're
so
correct.
thank you.
Sorry about
That's very helpful for me.
Right, thank you. I didn't note that, but if you look it up, you'll see that on the policies.
Okay,
Yeah, Gordon, let me make a suggestion that perhaps after the meeting or at some point that's convenient for both of you, you can communicate with Deborah to give her a little more direction as to how she can go right there to the district website. And since she already has the CSDA handbook, I'm assuming, direct her to the website and see where our CCSD policy handbook is as well.
That's what I mentioned. You type in district policies and it pops right up. You can't put just policy in. Otherwise it brings up our policy and all the things we've done, and it doesn't bring that up. So the key word is district policies. Each one of you should actually bring that up now would be appropriate if you're available to do this thing or have another computer. But
I
this
do.
is where I'm trying to lead a little bit of the group, that we want to use this as a positive direction and give them that opportunity of saying, how come they don't have a policy on these certain items?
All right, thank you, Gordon. Ted Key?
Yeah, well, it is actually a bit astonishing to me, since it was a comment by Director Stidel at one point in time that she would like to have a policy manual in one book that
Right.
would be able to be referred to easily, that she could pull off the shelf and find a policy on whatever, was of interest. And I have to say, with so many backlogged policies, I don't see how that book can come together until the board starts to approach. I know this is a messy business because we are talking about the how. A lot of these other things are just, the data straightforward. It's numbers. It's pieces of equipment. It's logistics to move those pieces of equipment around and so on and so forth. Policy committee is a messy deal, and it takes more time and a little more focus. But if we are to actually create the manual that was put forth by even our own current director, former president, we can't do that if we're going to be finding walls erected in every direction.
All right, thank you, Ted. I think we should wind this down. Gordon, you have your hand up.
Yes,
So,
quick comment.
I mean, it seems like Claudia does as well. So both of you make a couple of quick comments and we'll move on. Thank you.
A quick comment is they do not no longer want a physical book. It was decided they were going to do this all electronically. So there is no book to pull off the shelf. So everything can be done very easily now without us having to coordinate anything. All the numbers are right, everything's set up. So it's very applicable to us to go in and pick and choose those which do not have any adopted signed by them and bring those to the board for their direction. And they
Let
should
me
give up.
just say a single resource, that's all.
Right, that's fine. I'm just saying that we have them all. That's, you're doing this the hard way. They're written there. They're not approved. So therefore, let's bring those up forward and address them as we would do the CSDA book. That's all.
Well, I guess we lost Harry. Okay, I've got this up. It says district policies, but they look like they're the CSDA policies. So can you explain
Bingo.
that?
That's what I just said. Yes.
I know, but you said that they had something check mark next to the ones that have been approved, and I can't find that. So
Well, you have to open
I
it.
looked up correspondence to the board, and there's a policy there, but I don't see.
Well, look at 2150, for example. Reserve policy. I just happen to have that one open.
Okay,
Up in the right-hand corner, board approved on 5/13/2021.
okay. And so if we go to the back up to is this number 1040 corresponds to the board.
Okay,
That one
I
says it-
appreciate this dialogue that's going on here, but perhaps the two of you can get together at afterward and talk on the phone or something. I'd like to move forward because it's been almost an hour here and we have 3 more items to discuss, if you don't mind.
I think this is really important, Harry. Just
Right.
one thing is that if they have a policy on correspondence to the board, then how do they turn down ours? Never mind. So
Well,
it's,
now, when you say they, you're talking about the CSDA?
no, board approved it, 2/20 of 2020, it corresponds to the board. There's a policy that says that,
No, whoa. Correspondence to the board and responding to correspondence from the board are 2 different items.
oh,
Yes.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
It's nothing to be sorry about. It's easy to get that confused.
okay.
So no problem. But thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. All right. So if we don't mind now, I'd like to move on to item 3B, revisit and discuss, and I think we've done this in the past. Revisit and discuss the need for a district climate change policy and recommend that you truly forward this recommendation to the board of directors for consideration. So before I say anything, I really want to tip my hat, and I think all of us on the committee wish to tip our hats to Ted for the hard work that he did in this area. And I believe we really do need to forward something to the board. I've sent you all an email, and what I'd like to maybe do is just kind of fine tune, say maybe just a couple of statements, brief items with regard to where we feel most specifically that the district needs to be in line with doing the best that we can to be in harmony with what's happening with the climate crisis, climate emergency, whatever you want to call it. So Ted, I know you have your hand up and your arms crossed. But I did this specifically in a positive way. I hope you understand that. This isn't meant in any way, shape, or form as a criticism of what you've done, but we're already kind of behind the 8 ball as a policy committee. So I'm just trying to, like I say, fine tune this before we send it forward. So you have your hand up, go right ahead.
Look, the policy committee is behind the 8 ball no matter what we do. Seems to me. On this climate policy, frankly, I'm a little bit distressed that we need any changes on it at all, because honestly, it's going to go through the ad hoc process and be all torn apart anyway. So we may make changes today, but I don't know that they're going to make a whole lot of difference. Let me just say this about the climate policy. For one, this climate policy was not necessarily of my own. Director Howell, when he was running this policy committee, was very much in favor of me writing this policy, and in fact offered much constructive criticism, which I incorporated into this policy as I formulated it, talked to people in the community, and so on and so forth. Now, I think that to submit this policy for consideration to the other 2 committees is a good thing. The R&I committee, for example, they have begun to look at the environmental impacts of the things that they're buying and so on and so forth. So I think that their input on this would be good and would be important. Director Steidel mentioned in a previous meeting that the board has a fiduciary responsibility to the district. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't possibly agree more. But there's a myth going on here. And the myth is that going green costs more money. The reality is that going green ends up saving you money. Let me give you an example. We currently, thank goodness, don't need any more trucks. But electric trucks are out there. And if you take a look at the Ford F-150 Lightning, you will be quite astonished that the fleet version is $39,995 base price. Take $7,000 off of that for incentives from California, add 10% for tax and license, and you will be very close to the same price of an internal combustion engine. But here's the difference. With the internal combustion engine, you're dropping in $200 a fill, whereas with that electric truck, you're charging for $15 a pop. So I'm very, very interested in seeing how the financial committee would do an analysis of the cost per mile. We know there is no cheaper electricity to be had per kilowatt hour than solar. Nobody beats it. Now, I happen to have a solar system, second solar system on my house. It costs me the same amount of money to pay for that solar system every month than I would have paid in electrical bills. And 5 years from now, when that's paid off, guess what my electrical bills will be? They will be zero. So I think that there is a financial study that should absolutely be done. And in terms of the R&I committee, it seems as though they're definitely already on board with that. They certainly have approved of the idea of the pilot project for the Global Water Innovations proposal, which will, in the end, that equipment will make environmentally sound, financially viable, and sustainable water for our town. I've been talking about it now for over a year, and it took quite some time for all of this to actually take frame. So I'm very happy with the R&I committee right now because they use their good sense to approve this project. And I think when the people of Cambria realize what it presents, they are going to be very relieved that this disruptive technology is now available. But again, this is stuff that is climate sensitive. It's stuff that makes sense. Now, I'm happy to have people take a look at this policy and, you know, make some additions, whatever, clarifications and so on. But I don't see any point in us spending a whole lot of time on that when we know that the moment that it hits the board and the ad hoc committee, there will be several members on the board. The general manager doesn't want this. He's pretty much said straight out that it's too soon for a policy committee or for a climate policy. My answer is it's too damn late for a policy committee. We have a planet that's burning up, and everybody, you, me, the district, and everybody needs to start acting responsibly and acting quickly, because we just don't have that much time. So that's my 2 cents on that today, and I will remain quiet. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Ted. And I would have to say, with regard to your final statement there, that's definitely something I think we would all be in agreement with. So Claudia, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just had to be talking to a man who works for the CCSD. He's worked for Carlos in the maintenance department, and he's also worked in, I think, in the sewer plant. But I was talking to him about trucks and about climate change and about, you know, electric trucks and vehicles and things. And he said a couple of things that were really interesting. And one of them, he says, for those people who have to be on call and need to have a CCSD vehicle taken home, they don't need a truck, most of them. And they don't need as many trucks as they seem to be buying. Many things can be done in a car. Not everybody's hauling things or pulling a trailer or whatever you need with that. He also said that it's getting to be much more common to have electric trucks. And of course, they're powerful. I have an electric car. I know how powerful they are. And so it's not a matter of not having enough power with electric truck. But I just thought it was interesting that he felt that we really have an overabundance of gas, he didn't say that, but gas guzzling types of vehicles. Those could be exchanged out for electric vehicles, and we could save a lot of money. And most people probably shouldn't be living in Santa Barbara and commute to Cambria, so they should be able to get a charge.
Well, I think that's a slight exaggeration.
I am, but there's somebody that that we pay a salary to who lives quite far away, and although he can probably get on one charge to get from his house to here, but anyway, so that wouldn't be an argument either, to be too far away to have electric vehicle. But I just thought it was interesting that he said that we don't need as many trucks as we do, because trucks use up so much gas. And I drove by today and it's like $6 a gallon, so it's pretty scary. But that's somebody who works for us.
All right, thank you very much, Claudia. Yes, Gordon.
Well, I think we're all in agreement with what Ted's indicating with his proposal for climate change. But the indication from the board is this policy, as written, is more of a policy on procedure and not a policy of what to do. We've overstepped it by detailing what we expect people to do. And this is the one thing that came up, is this would be involved with purchasing of equipment, which would be finance, dedicating budgets for equipment, which would be the R&D. And this organization would.
Yeah, it's R&I, Gordon, just to correct you.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Is the different committees would work together to do this. And we're trying to tell them what to do. And that's not what our policy should be saying. The policy should be, we need a climate change policy for energy savings and the environmental aspects in one sentence, 2 sentences, instead of a book. And then say, we need to have the ad hoc committees work out on their own agenda to see how they're going to do this. Make it simple. That's my opinion, that we're over killing about all the details. And all we need is a policy that says, hey, we need one for the environment, we need one for the energy savings, etc. And suggest that the three committees can work together to fine tune this.
All right, Gordon, thank you very much. So Ted, I know I was just going to say you have your hand up. So if you would take your hand down, but you just put your hand up also if you get my drift. Go ahead and respond to what Gordon just said, if you don't mind.
Well, look, I understand what Gordon is saying, and I agree that I did get into the procedure part of it, but mainly I did so in anticipation of all the objections that undoubtedly will be raised by this. Again, I don't anticipate that this climate policy as written is going to necessarily be what it looks like in the end, and that's fine. But yeah, I think, and that's why for this one, for example, I really don't have any objection to the ad hoc people going to the various other committees and getting their input on, how policy would affect procedure in the light of this particular issue. I don't have any problem with that. And again, I'm very glad to have seen that the R&I committee has begun to do so on its own. So yeah, it's fine. Maybe I got too far into the weeds with this thing. That's fine. That's going to get fleshed out at some point anyway. But yeah, all well and good. I mean, if what this does is that it opens a serious conversation about what our district should be doing, then it was successful and an adoption of some sort of response to the climate crisis that we face that makes some sense for our district to pursue, not only because of the ecology of it, but because of the financial aspects of it. And yeah, no, I can't argue with what Gordon has said. And yes, I did get into the weeds a little bit, very much because of the anticipation of all the objections that I'm sure will be leveled. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Deborah, I see you have your hand up. It'd be nice to hear from you on this, so go right ahead.
Well, I'm looking at the bylaws, and what it says is that we need to develop a needs assessment. I think you take this document and you put at the top needs assessment for climate change policy, and you give it to the board and you say, okay, here, give it to your ad hoc committee and we'll go from there.
Simple.
I mean, unless they have a format for a needs assessment, this is a needs assessment. And so then the next step would be the committee chair provide the needs assessment to the board members for consideration. And then they'll determine if there is a policy that is required, and then they can assign their ad hoc committee.
Bingo.
Okay. All right. So are
I
you?
have a motion.
I was going to say, I know you want to say one more thing. So it sounds like you've got a motion
Yes.
that you'd like to make there. So go ahead. It looks like you still have your hand up, so go right ahead.
Oh, okay. So I move that we change the heading on this policy, on this document, to label it needs assessment for a climate change policy, and send it to the board. Give it to our chairperson so that he can then take it to the board for consideration.
All right. All right. Do we, Gordon, you have your finger up there. Fortunately, it's this finger. So
What was that again?
did you want to
wouldn't-
second that or?
No, comment beforehand.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be better if we had a policy number that we could put onto this as opposed to just the needs, so that we could put this in the policy book?
No, that it doesn't say we get to do that. Give it a
Okay, that's
number or
what, I
anything.
wasn't too clear on how that would work.
Yeah, this is just a needs assessment. That's all it is. A very finely written needs assessment.
Right. No, that's fine. Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we have a motion.
Thank you,
made by-
Deborah.
You're welcome.
We have a motion made by Ms. Scott and it's seconded by Mr. Gordon Heinrichs that we forward a needs assessment for a climate change policy to the Board of Directors. So let's take a vote on that, just to be specific here, because I think this is pretty important. So Deborah, your vote.
Hi.
All right, Gordon,
Aye.
Mr. Key,
Aye.
Ms. Worthen. We didn't hear you say, you're muted.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All righty. I think that was let me just say this. I think so far with both of the items that we've discussed here, both of these, like I say, both of these discussions have been very productive. And I want to thank all of you for how we've engaged these two items. Yes, before we move on to item number 3, yes, Deborah.
Ted, will you send this to me in a format where I'm gonna send it in the form of a needs assessment to them. If you'll send it to me, I'll write that up and forward it to Harry if that's okay.
It's as good as done, Deborah.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to regular old business item C. Discuss the need for a district code of ethics policy and direct Chairperson Farmer to recommend to the Board of Directors the creation of a district code of ethics policy. So let me just say this, that as I sent an email to all of you, board members and members of standing committees, as well as the Pros Commission, we are all obligated every 2 years to basically attend ethics training and harassment training course. And so it seemed to me, if we're obligated to attend a 2-hour seminar on these items, that we should probably have a policy on it as well. So that's why I brought it here for discussion. So does anybody wish to? I see Ted, you have a smile on your face, so why don't I call on you here?
I don't know how you can have any business or any operation without some sort of ethics policy. I mean, to me, not to have an ethics policy is just incredible. And clearly the district has already recognized the fact that something has to be done regarding the ethics issue. And that is, we need to take ethics training. Now, that's a pretty minor ethics policy, if you will, but it is a recognition that an ethics policy or an ethics procedure, if you will, needs to take place on a regular basis. That in itself is a policy. It is astonishing to me that this district has existed for God knows how long without some codified ethics policy. That's my 2 cents on the matter. Again, if we don't do it, who will? Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you for your calm demeanor on that item. Does anyone else wish to make a comment in agreement with Mr. Key or in any other fashion? Ted, if you wouldn't mind taking that little hand down also, by the way, please. Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Harry. What I'm thinking is, how do we follow the new bylaw in order to do this? Um, so, again, I'm trying to figure out what format we would need to give them as far as the needs assessment is concerned. I mean, I kind of think we could just say, you know, I think what you wrote in your email
Uh-huh.
is exactly what needs to be said to the board. We need a code of ethics policy. So go forth and go, if they decide that they want to do that, then do the ad hoc committee and go from there and give us the parameters that they want in the policy. Bottom line is, I don't know why they don't just adopt this policy as it is. It's a good policy.
All right. Ted, did you want to say one more thing?
Let me just say something here, because I need to make this really clear.
I'll call on you next, Gordon. Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I'll be really quick. The reason why I will not be running for a CCSD director position is the fact that I am now an angel investor in the company that's going to create the piece of equipment that will make ecologically sound, financially viable, and sustainable water for Cambria. Now, I can't serve on a board without everybody saying that's a conflict of interest, and it would be. And no way in the world will I ever have my name associated with even the close possibility that I would be, well, out of bounds in, raising my hand for this, that, or the other thing for a piece of equipment that, it's probably going to cost, well, actually, it's probably not going to cost us anything, because my suspicion is that the state of California, when we demonstrate zero liquid discharge, is going to buy the thing for us with grants. But be that as it may, it's a conflict of interest. It's a conflict of interest for me, and I will not have my name ever sullied with such a thing. Thank you.
All right, Ted, thank you. Claudia, no, it's Gordon. Gordon, you wish to make a comment? And then I'll, my apologies, Michael, I didn't ask for public comment on any of the items. So let me go ahead with Gordon, and then Michael, I'll call on you. And my apologies for not having asked for public comment on the previous items. Yes, Gordon.
On the district policy, the 1030 policy is not shown as one of the policies that they've done anything with, but it fits in with our agenda that this item is missing and should be brought to the attention of the board. So I would label this as like Deborah's mentioning, it needs a needs factor, that the 1030 is an appropriate ethical codes and values assessment by the board, underlying their policies that they want us to generate for them. So that's how I'd abbreviate considering this format.
Okay, thank you. Michael Calderwood from the public, and like I say, Michael, my apologies for not having offered public comment prior to this. So go right ahead.
No problem, sir. This has actually been a great conversation. All of these topics have been really well chewed through and thought through, and there's good thought being put into it. On the ethics policy, just a couple of things that might be helpful. The ethics training that you're required to take, board staff and all that, I believe that's a government requirement that you do that. So I couldn't quite connect the dots on Ted's thought on that, but just clarification that it is a requirement from the government that public agencies and public servants do that sort of thing. There's sort of been some discussion and supposition about why the board will or won't do that. So it would be helpful, I think, to, as you get to put this policy together or the recommendation for policy, maybe find a way to review what some of the previous objections were and address those prior to sort of going back into battle. I think there may be fewer than we think, and I think some of them may be legitimate, and then you can structure your proposal around that to get to where it needs to be. And I think the final thing is, one thing we all have to be cognizant of is our own biases and preferences. So when a policy like this or any policy gets put forward, it's done with as much neutrality, lack of bias, and really open-mindedness as to who the audience is, what the purpose is, what the expected outcome would be, and the enforcement mechanisms for that. So anticipate the objections, validate. One thing that might be good to do is to look at other agencies or similar or perhaps adjacent to this space and say, what do they have for policies? And do they all have them? And if they do, why? And if they don't, why not? So basically, forearmed is forewarned, and then you can go in and make a more cogent and effective argument for why this policy would make sense to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And I know the basic procedure at board meetings is that we just listen to what public commenters have to say, but we don't necessarily respond. But this is a standing committee. So at one point, I believe you made the remark that there have been comments in the past about why we don't need a code of ethics policy. And maybe we should go back and research why people had that particular opinion. I don't know how easy it would be to do that. Do you have any suggestion in that regard?
I would ask Tim Carmel, since he is the keeper of all things, legal and ethical. He might be able to say, here are the 5 arguments. That would be a place I would start. The institutional knowledge of the board is not there because you're all new relatively, as is the staff. So Tim would be sort of the through line that I would think would be an appropriate place to reach out to.
All right, Michael, thank you so much for that suggestion. Yes, Ted, you have your hand up again.
I totally agree with what Michael has said. But let me say this ethics policy was something that we submitted to the board back at the beginning of the policy committee. So this has been one of those languishing policies. And without question, whatever reconstruction, if it was considered at one point in time, whatever reconstruction is good, but I almost think the process should begin anew to really nail down what this particular board or the next board that's coming up in the fall will have to say about these things. But I totally agree that the reconstruction of what happened the first time we submitted this ethics policy should be considered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Anyone else? Anyone else have any comment? All right. Deborah, since you've already spoken and both you and Claudia raised your hand, Claudia, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Unmute.
Unmute yourself, please, Claudia.
I keep getting phone calls, so I keep turning it off. Michael said something about previous comments, and I know that there was a particular person, I won't say who it was, but there was a particular person that when this was first addressed, said that, I think he said, I don't believe in ethics. I don't believe in having an ethics policy. I don't believe in ethics. And it wasn't a
those are two different comments.
He said, I don't believe in ethics, is what he said, and that was the end of it. He didn't ever.
Okay. Well. All right. So your point is.
The point is that there are comments that have been made in the past that were probably not well thought out, and so maybe we can look at some of these old comments that were made, but I think we need to move forward with this and try to be on a more positive vein.
I hate to say this, Claudia, but I'm shocked. You would be saying, well, people make comments that aren't well thought out. Just my weird sense of humor. Yes, Deborah, go right ahead.
Couple things. Michael, Tim, what was the person's name? Tim what?
Tim Carmel, he's
Carmel,
district
he's our
counsel.
legal counsel
Carmel?
for the district.
How do you spell it?
CARMEL.
Oh, okay. So he is whom?
He's our attorney.
Oh, okay.
He's the district attorney for X number of years, for a long time.
Okay. Okay. And this question, and this is just for the minutes, when was this sent to the board previously? What year?
Gee, I personally have no idea. Gordon, do you know at all?
Oh, it's several years ago.
2 years ago,
How many?
2.
2. Okay.
We probably need to research that a little more. To me, there's a big difference between several and 2.
Yeah, but it was back at the beginning of the policy.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
so Michael, you have your hand up again. So did you wish to make a further comment?
Yeah, I don't want to violate the process here, but just a thought that popped into my head that I should have stated was, it's important to remember that any policy and any good and durable policy should be just that, regardless of what board is in place at the time. So we can't design policies that are
Yes.
tailored or specified to whoever happens to be occupying a seat right now. It's got to be a solid policy that's long lasting. Thank you.
Right, absolutely. Sure. I'd like to think that that's kind of a given, but who knows? So let me say this before I ask for someone to make a motion to forward this, give it to me so I can send this to present this to the board. I've been on the board of directors now for 5.5 years. And I would say in the time that I've worked at the district, I can think of at least 2 situations where unethical behavior took place, where perhaps if we had had a code of ethics in place that we could have used in dealing with the behavior of staff members as they either treated other staff members or weren't honest in things that they did, that perhaps the board would have had a little bit more, how could we say it? A little bit more ability to address the behavior of folks at this district that were earning pretty good salaries and call them on their issues, as opposed to how things ultimately did or didn't get resolved. So I just want to make that comment, and I'm not naming any names or anything. It's just my observation of things. So would anybody wish to make a motion to have me present the recommendation to the board for a conflict of interest policy to be ultimately approved by the board? Anybody want to make a motion in some fashion? Yes, Ted.
I make the motion that the board give us a straight up or down vote. Does this district need an ethics policy?
Okay, a code of ethics policy. All right, I'm going to wait until Deborah writes this down. I don't know if that's necessarily the motion that I would want. So Deborah, why don't you go ahead and read what Ted just stated and see if we get any feedback on this.
Okay. Ted moved to ask the ask the board, does this district need a code of ethics policy?
I think somehow it feels like it was slightly different.
It was,
Yes,
it was. I will.
I was being diplomatic.
No, you were, and Deborah, I appreciate you more than you will ever know. But let me just say this. It doesn't matter. Does this board want a policy, an ethics, a code of ethics policy? You know, I mean, I think that's the first question, because now we have the business of the ad hoc committees. You know, the ad hoc business deciding, you know, what happens with these proposals. Before we even move forward, isn't the basic question, does this board want a code of ethics policy? If the board does not want a code of ethics policy, then they should say so. I do think it's as simple as that.
You know, Ted, I can't necessarily disagree with your comment. However, I don't see how taking that comment, getting a motion and getting a second on your motion and then voting on that is actually going to be productive if I take that statement to the board of directors. Maybe there's another way that we can rephrase or reframe this. Yes, Claudia, go right ahead. Claudia, you have your finger up.
Sorry, I thought I should tell you that I found the spreadsheet and it mentions the code of ethics. And one, it says no policy on record under this label, board review needed to see if topic is covered elsewhere, not in bylaws or other policy list. And then there's a couple of little checks on here. And one of them goes to one or more policy documents exist, board approved dates conflicting, unclear or absent. And the other thing that's checked on here is under staff review. So yeah, under staff review. Oh, hang on a second. No, wrong one. Sorry. BOD review. So, well, I guess it's kind of the same thing. That's just what's in the spreadsheet of what happened before. And the date on this is July, actually both June 21st of 2021 and July 7th of 2021. So it appears that we had talked about this, at least that's what Dawn had put into the spreadsheet only about a year ago. So just thought I'd bring that up.
All right. Okay, so thank you very much for looking that up, Claudia. So once again, Ted, I'm going to give you the honor here of slightly, hold on, Gordon has his hand up. Gordon, go right ahead.
yes, I would redefine the motion to indicate the needs for a code of ethics, policy number 1030, for the CCSD to designate its code of ethics and values to provide a clear, positive statements of ethical behavior reflecting the core values of its district and the community it serves.
All right. Why don't you go ahead, Gordon? I know that Deborah is taking that down. Go ahead and restate that as a motion if you don't mind.
Well, it's written in the first sentence of the policy. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, I see 1030.1.
Okay, so yeah, I see. You don't have to say the whole thing, but just word it for me in the way that you said just a minute ago.
Well, I make a motion that the board provides us the needs value for Code of Ethics, policy number 1030, by the CCSD to designate its code of ethics and values to provide a clear, positive statements of ethical behavior reflecting the core values of the district and the community it serves.
Okay, so you're asking the board to provide a needs assessment? Is that what you're saying?
Right, yes.
Okay, well, they're not the ones who are supposed to do a needs assessment. It's us.
Well, that's what we're asking them for. You know what you did with the first policy? Or did I
Okay,
miss it?
so you're asking them to tell us to do a needs assessment. Okay.
Right, I'm
I
sorry.
got it. I got
I was trying to word it like you did, but you do such a better job than.
it. No.
Thank-
Okay, the board, okay, so the board direct the policy committee.
How
needs
about
to-
request that the board of directors,
Direct the
Request that the-
policy committee, right?
right,
Yeah, to do a needs assessment, right?
Right,
And then with those beautiful words that are here.
right.
Okay, I got it.
That summarized the whole thing, whether they're gonna do it or not.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't want to do, it's like
Yeah.
Ted's saying, well, that's their choice.
that's even a more diplomatic way than what I said.
Well,
Okay,
Ted, I see you have your hand up, but you're muted, so we didn't hear your laughter. So did you wish to make? did you
No,
wish to make a-
all I want to say is thank you, Gordon. You're clearly more diplomatic than I.
I second it. I second
Yeah.
it.
All right, so, all right, so we have a motion and a second. So Gordon, how do you vote?
Yes,
I should say Mr. Heinrichs. Ms. Scott,
Yes,
okay, Mr. Key.
Aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Worthen,
Aye.
cool. All
Aye.
right, so motion passed 4-0 with one absence. But so let's move on to, and thank you all for that discussion. So let's quickly move on to the final item under new regular business. Discuss establishing a new meeting time for the monthly policy committee meetings. So, right, lately we've been meeting at 3, well, since I think for a long time, we've been meeting at 3 in the afternoon. I believe that was because of some convenience to at least one member of the committee. Might have been the previous board president, Don Howell, I'm not sure. Is everybody happy with meeting at 3 o'clock? Would you rather, there are the various meeting times that take place, not just with the board, but let's just say in the community, they're anywhere from 10 in the morning till 7 in the evening, 5:30 in the evening, 4 in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Are we happy with 3 o'clock? Would we like to make it a little earlier, make it later? I wouldn't want to make it later. Does anybody have any recommendation other than just leaving it the way it is at 3 o'clock? Yes, Claudia.
I pull my hand down because I want to leave it the way it is.
Okay. Everybody's okay with 3 o'clock? Is that what we're saying here? Okay.
I
Well,
got one conflict.
all right, Gordon.
That's on June 23rd.
Okay.
I'm going to be out of town. So,
Well, if you're going to be out of town, we just leave it at 3 o'clock.
well, if you want me to be here, if you don't, then that's fine.
No,
I'll be-
when you said you're going to be out of town, does that
I'm
mean, are you saying that you'll be out of town at 3 o'clock?
Right,
But you wouldn't be if we had it earlier?
right. I'd be on an airplane at 3 o'clock.
Okay,
I can't really do that too well on the road like I've done in the past. That's all.
okay. So what we're doing right now is perhaps stating that the meetings will continue the meetings at 3 o'clock as we've been doing, but perhaps we need to make a slight adjustment for the next meeting on June 23rd for the convenience of Mr. Heinrichs. So what would work better for you, Gordon?
Well, like I say, I won't be here. I'll be on an airplane at 3 o'clock. So
So should I
earlier-
restate what I just said? What time would be better for you on that day?
well, probably 12 o'clock.
What time is your plane?
3 o'clock. So it's close. That's whatever, if that works or not.
I'm going to suggest that, so this is on the 23rd. Let me, if nobody minds, let me check my, everybody check and see if 10 a.m. on June 23rd works for them, and I'll be right back. All right, so I don't see any conflict. Does 10 a.m. on June 23rd work for everybody else?
As a one-time deal?
As a
Yes.
one-time deal, yeah.
I
This is for the convenience of our vice chair.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can't do that. So,
Okay, Claudia, so what would work for you?
I could possibly do it at noon as long as I did it from San Luis Obispo. I'll just go find a coffee shop and then. But you shouldn't make the meetings convenient for anyone, you make the meetings the time they are, and if somebody can't show, you didn't do it for Ted, I know that Gordon's the vice chair, but
I'm suggesting
Yeah,
this agenda, so that's what I brought it up. If somebody wanted to make a change, that was the question. If you didn't bring it up, I would not be in attendance, so I don't want to be treated special. I just thought it was on the agenda and I would bring that conflict up. I was not gonna attend.
Is
with
this,
my intent.
All right.
So,
is this-
so,
is
Okay,
this a
well,
one-time deal?
yeah, it's a one-time deal.
yeah, I'll get on the airplane.
But yeah, perhaps, I guess to some degree, Claudia's point's kind of well taken. I mean, Ted was unable to attend. Today, Jim's unable to attend. Next time, you're unable to attend. So I guess we'll just have to leave it at that, Gordon. And
No, that's fine. That's, works for me. I just was on the agenda, sir. That's what
Yeah.
you asked.
correct.
So I brought it up because I wasn't going to bring it up. I was say I'm not going to be there. But
All right.
if somebody agreed with the 10 o'clock time, I'd say, hey, I can do it from remote.
Yeah, well, I did what I could, so. All
Well-
right, so
Good, no problem.
our meetings will continue at 3 o'clock.
I just didn't know why you brought it up as a question, I guess.
I brought up 3 o'clock in the afternoon to see if another time was more convenient, maybe like in the morning or earlier in the afternoon. That's the reason I brought it up.
Okay, I thought you may have a conflict. That's fine with me. 3 o'clock's done well.
I don't have any conflict. I just,
Okay,
okay. All right. So it remains at 3 o'clock. So do we have any future agenda items? I know Claudia made one last time that we didn't address this time because I thought these items were more important. Go ahead, Claudia.
What was the item that I asked to bring up this time? I forgot what it was.
Member Harmon, this is from the minutes of our last meeting. Member Harmon requested that the previous policy work spreadsheet be added to the committee's next agenda.
Oh, yeah. So, and directly, we did that sort of. Okay, the other thing I'd like to say is that I'm feeling, this is just a little comment. I'm feeling a little bit like I should be doing something. And I think I feel like we all should be doing something in between our monthly meetings. We should be researching or doing something. I mean, I miss that, I miss, our small ad hocs where we got together and we, created policy or discussed policy to bring forward. And since, I don't know, been quite a while now, we aren't asked to do anything. And I feel like, I don't know, I guess the problem is that there's nothing for us to do because we can only do what the board tells us to do, and they haven't told us to do anything. So we'll just hold tight until they give us a direction as to what we're able to do or what they want us to do or something. Anyway, it's just,
So I don't know if that's necessarily a future agenda item. It's more of a comment on the fact that you'd like to have more to do with relationship to the policy committee.
well, yeah, I have enough to do, but just the policy.
Yes, Mr. Key.
Well, I think Claudia hit the nail on the head here, as far as, where we are going to go. So as our liaison, if you would please ask the board to give us further direction. Let's see if we can get a report on that for the next meeting so that we can be more useful for the board. I mean, that's the whole idea. We're supposed to be helping the board. So if they want to tell us how they want us to help them, then, well, please tell us. Thanks.
Okay. All right. I will work on that. So before I adjourn the meeting, I'd like to wish a slightly belated happy birthday to Mr. Key and a early happy birthday to Mr. Heinrichs.
Ooh,
Yay,
happy birthday.
yay, happy birthday.
All right. Anybody else have any comment before we say au revoir? All right. So thank you all so much for your attendance. Michael, thank you for being a member of the public that's contributed in a very helpful fashion to this meeting. And I want to say that, and I think Michael alluded to this earlier, that this meeting went very well. I believe that all of our discussion was of real value, and I'm proud of us, especially considering how we're seen, as others have alluded to, perhaps how we're seen by certain members of the board as not being necessarily all that necessary. But I think today we've proven that we're certainly more than competent in doing whatever job we need to do. So I wish all of you a very pleasant rest of the day. Have a good rest of May, and we'll see you on June 23rd, if not before. So
Have a good holiday.
yes, enjoy Memorial Day weekend. And we should probably think about why we, how could we say it? We celebrate Memorial Day for a reason. I would hope, by the way, that we all reflect on what has been happening recently in our nation. And let me just say this. This is just my own personal opinion. You can't have the largest defense budget in the history of the known universe, send weapons, billions of dollars of weapons to other countries, and not expect billions of dollars of weapons often used. Well, maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but you can't be, and also, how could we say this? Producing more, 90% of the weapons that people can buy at a store, 90% of those are produced in this country, and not expect something to result from these behaviors. So that's just my take on it. Now, maybe I shouldn't have brought this up, but let's just vote in some fashion with our hearts for a more peaceful way of living in our nation and on this planet. Let me just leave it at that. A more loving way. Yes, Deborah. Oh, peace sign. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gordon. So, and a heart sign. Thank you so much, Claudia. Much love to all of you. And thank you again, Michael, for attending. And adios.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Viento.